In this tutorial video, we're going to cover off the last three types of images: carousel, toggle, and paint. So let's use Command N to launch a new InDesign document. Our intent is again digital publishing, iPad, portrait. How we're going to place an image. For this you can do Command D. Go into your assets and choose an image. Let's place it edge to edge in this document. And here on our object panel, let's add a few more images in. There they all are. And let's change our type to carousel. We'll leave all of this as default to begin with. Just do a build. And we haven't saved it, so that's prompted us that we need to save our document first. So let's save it in here, carousel. Now it'll let us build to our simulator directory. In the previewer, that'll then come up, carousel, vertical tablet. Select that, and yeah, that doesn't look great. The images come through pretty small. It's a nice effect, but you can't really see it very well. So let's go back to the plugin, the object panel. Now what you'll find with carousels is the actual frame that you place on the page defines what area within your page the carousel is allowed to cover. What determines the size of the images within that carousel are these two fields here, width and height. So if we change that to something a bit more sensible, like 500 by 300, do a build, you can see that gives us a much nicer image size. The carousel is allowed to go from this edge through to this edge. The images are allowed to occupy space maximum 500 by 300 pixels each. And you can see we've now got this really nice swipey image carousel that the users are bound to like. What other settings have we got? Well, it's worth noting at this point that setting 500 by 300 doesn't mean your images are going to be stretched into that specific size. What it is it's a constraining dimension. So what the plugin will do is it'll go through, look through each of your images, it'll decide which of those two dimensions best suits your set of images and use that as a maximum. So your images will maintain their aspect ratio but be displayed within those parameters. So let's change to rotary, see what that gives us, and let's put wrap on as well. Build that. And here you can see we've got a slightly different effect now. And wrap just means that when you get to the last image, wraps back round to the start image there. There we are. And back in here, we have various different options you can play around with. Cylinder, you can change whether it's inverted, a vertical cylinder. Let's see what that gives us. So you've got a vertical cylinder, which is quite a nice effect. And it's this kind of interaction that really your users are going to like, because they really feel like they've not just got a flat magazine, they've got something they can interact with, play around with, and just generally have fun with. So have a go with various different options in the carousel panel, see what you can create. Moving on from there, we've got toggle and paint. So let's ditch this off. Let's start with paint. Place an image. And change it to paint mode. You get one option here, which is your brush size. Paint is pretty simple. You can guess what it is. You got an image, user drags, and it paints. Now you can use actions, which we will go over later on, to set the paint color that is relevant at any given time. For the moment it defaults to black. And we can give that a brush size of whatever we want, 50 pixels. Gives you a nice thick one. This is useful especially for things like drawing within kids' magazines, that kind of thing, if you want them to be able to draw on the page. It's quite a nice effect for that. So that is the paint type. Now let's move on to toggle images. We're going to use a slightly different type of file for this, so we'll go into toggle, we'll have an off and an on image. Place one here. Let's place another here. Let's start off with this one. Let's fit that content to the frame. Let's add the on image to that one as well. So within this one image, we've got an on state, we've got an off state. Let's change that to toggle. Let's drag the on state to the top. Now what you'll see, if we do a build, is this button that we made into a toggle button. Click on it and it will toggle between off and on. Go back to here. We've got another toggle here. Well, let's make it another toggle. Let's add the off state to that one as well. So this is also on and off. Do a build. And you've got two buttons that can each independently be turned off and on. They have no effect on each other whatsoever. Well, you might think, hey, I want to use this like radio buttons. I want one to be on, that results in the others being off. So what you can do, back on the settings here, you've got this concept of a group here. So if we call this group 1, select our other one and place it into the same group, which you'll see that now appears in the drop down. Select group 1. So these buttons are both now part of group 1. Do a build. And back in the previewer, you can see only one is on at any given time. So setting one to the on state will change the other to the off state. You can select a sound file that will play back when the user taps on those buttons if you want to, some sort of nice clicking sound, and you can choose which one is switched on by default. You can set up as many of these groups as you want. So let's say you wanted 3 different sets of radio buttons within your page. You'd have group 1, group 2, group 3, and each group will act independently of each other. So that is our last image type: carousel, toggle, and paint.